Hello guys and welcome to today's episode. I am out in nature, look at me. Wow. I thought I'd film out here today. There's some crazy bushfires, which explains like the humidity and the smokiness of today's atmosphere. But I thought I'd film out here because I'm always in the studio and I think I should be out in nature every now and then to change things up a bit. And if there's a little bit of noise, I'm sorry. Please bear with me. So today's topic is about envy. This whole week is. In Chinese, I guess it would be 羡慕或者妒忌他人的悲惨的结局. If you watch my episodes, episodically and consistently, you'll know that this whole week has been about, not this whole week, this whole, season has been about the 7 deadly sins. And right now we're on to envy. So I want to show a few movies that, one old movie that I really like and a new one that I've discovered recently for today's topic, and the danger. I also want to talk about, the danger and the downside and the extreme sides of envy and how it can affect us every day. Yeah, I guess. To give a warning, to keep our mentalities straight and to be healthy mentally and to avoid some of the mistakes in the examples that I will be giving, and to live happily and freely, physically and mentally free. So without further ado, let's get into it. So basically, envy is a very powerful emotion, one that can drive people to incredible length. From the surface, it looks like admiring someone for what they have or wanting something that people have. If we dig a little deeper, it's more than that. It's the deep resentment of ourselves and also others when we feel like we are deprived of something that we deserve, we think that we deserve. In today's video, we're going to take a look at a few examples from 2 movies which I think many would have heard of or seen. You may have heard The Talented Mr. Ripley, Saltburn. Movies and TV shows like this shows and demonstrates how envy can push people to deceive, manipulate, and even destroy others in their quest to become something that they're not. We will explore how these characters are consumed by envy, the dangers of idolizing and admiring other people's lives and for what they are and what they look like, and what this emotion reveals about the darker side of human nature. I feel like David Attenborough, like the guy that talks about nature.
The nature of life has transformed, as you can see this away in the wild.
Me, I'm in the wild. Anyway, ow. Okay. Talented Mr. Ripley. I love this film. I know this film because when I was in uni, I think it was one of the scenes that we had to perform for a uni assessment. Oh, by the way, I studied Bachelor of Fine Arts performing. And for one of the assessments, it was violence and sex. So we had to pick one sex scene and one violence scene and then partner up. So we had 10 people in our class. We had to partner up with someone and do a violence scene with them and a sex scene with them. And Talented Mr. Ripley was one of the scenes where, this might be a spoiler alert. If you want to watch the movie, skip this part or don't watch this. But basically in one of the scenes, the main character, which is Mr. Ripley, Tom, kills Dickie, the guy that he supposedly love and admire and envy. My friend and I picked that, and I played Dickie, the guy that died. And my best friend at the time in uni played Talented Mr. Ripley. So I love that film. We watched it so many times and we watched the scene so many times, analyzed the characters, and I love that movie. It's a brilliant movie and it used to be a novel, and it will always be one of my favorite movies. So basically, for those who haven't seen it, in the movie The Talented Mr. Ripley, Tom Ripley, just basically becomes very envious of Dickie. Dickie Greenleaf's charm, wealth, looks, his personality. Dickie's very charming in the film. Jude Law is stunning. And in the beginning, he kind of admires Dickie in a way. He was friends with him, he was welcomed, and then he slowly started to kind of reveal himself in ways that made Dickie slowly feel uncomfortable. He was a closeted homosexual, and he started falling in love with Dickie. Tom Ripley is obviously the opposite of Dickie, but I think Tom Ripley's character, Matt Damon, in the film was very attractive. Both had their face game. They were both quite attractive young men and actors in the film. But later, Tom Ripley's admiration, I guess, for Dickie becomes envy, which drives him to lie even more because he started off lying anyway, but he went ahead more with his lie and manipulations and eventually murders and steals Dickie Greenleaf's identity. He loved Dickie so much, he wanted to become him, and so he did. And he said one thing, that if he had Dickie's life, he would live it so much more different. He would live it better, and that's what he did. He took Dickie's life and he became Dickie. And he started living the life which he thinks he deserves to live. It becomes dangerous when it becomes narcissism, right? And now we'll talk about the movie Saltburn. The Saltburn's very similar to The Talented Mr. Ripley. It's like basically a modern version of it, but the main character in Saltburn, I would say, isn't as physically attractive as Mr. Ripley, Tom Damon's character. In Saltburn, the main character, Oliver, is portrayed more of a wimpy kid, more of like a nerdy, socially awkward guy, not as charming. In Saltburn, the protagonist, which is Oliver, he becomes so blinded, again, by envy, that he basically destroyed every single person which he admired, which is very contradicting. It's very polarizing. It's very mentally unstable. You know, Oliver's fascination and, I guess, crush and admiration towards Jacob Elordi. Jacob Elordi went to my university, by the way. This guy was in the year above me. He grew up in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. Just to put that out there, guys. But, you know, Jacob's character, which is Felix, is actually quite wholesome. There was nothing really bad about him. He was actually really eager to help Oliver and actually try to be friends with him. Felix's death is really undeserved. He was actually genuinely a pretty decent guy. He didn't do anything wrong, which makes it even worse. But yeah, this movie is definitely very disturbing. Both movie has the same moral of the story, which is when admiration, infatuation, obsession, and envy goes a little too far and too extreme, that drives people to do things that are very disturbing. And there has been real life cases of this happening. I'm sure, I won't give an example, but I'm sure there has. I mean, it happens all the time, you know, your neighbors, which in high school, in university, when we grow up, it's human nature to do that. But it's also in human nature to be able to control that, right? In both films, the central characters become so blinded by their envy that they are willing to destroy the very people which they admired in order to take what they covet. Both stories illustrates how envy can drive a person to cross ethical boundaries, and it revealed the darker side of human nature, as their admiration turns into envy and unhealthy obsession. So, now we all know all this about envy and these great films that portray envy. What now?
What happens now?
What was the purpose of this video?
And how do we resolve it?
Well, I'm glad you have asked, my fellow friends. There are plenty of ways to resolve envy, but it always starts off small. I think the first one would be to realize it. So watching this video, I think it's the first step to realizing it, to be aware of it. When you are in a state of insecurity and constantly envious of others, everything people say, you become defensive, and it creates a huge feeling of inadequacy. And you're not vibrating or being your true self, because your true self is not insecure. Anyone who says,
"Oh, I'm insecure.
I'm
not as great,
I'm not as strong,"
that's not your true self at all. That's a state of being that's temporary, caused by certain events or traumas, but that's not our true selves. Our true selves, and everyone can achieve, is to be joyous, happy, confident, healthy well-beings with a strong sense of identity and self-esteem. It all takes a while. Some people naturally have it, but for most, it takes a while to build and to realize and to cultivate. But it's very important because it leads to your happiness, which is what's the most important at the end of the day. If we're all individually happy, then the world will become a better place and a more peaceful place. So I do want to add that point in. For God's sakes.